Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of your faithful trip. It started in the firmament, and then we all got tricked. Life was great when we were young, with all the things we believed. Then it all got hard, unbearable, and we know we're being deceived. Forgotten, ignored, secret, and hidden. Topics that talk about how water is knowledge. Now drink from the fountain. Let's pour some on you now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Plain Mundane Show. This is Alex. Did you know, were you aware that a medical mistake claimed the life of Neil Armstrong, the American Apollo mission astronaut? This is by Dr. Joseph Mercola. This is from August 10th, 2019, less than a month ago, from Mercola website. The story at a glance. In 2012, Armstrong, aged 82, underwent heart surgery at Mercy Health Hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio. He died 2 weeks later. His two sons insisted his death was caused by medical error. An anonymous source leaked documents to the press showing the hospital paid the Armstrong family a $6 million malpractice settlement. The sender hoped bringing the information to light might help save lives. When nurses removed the wires for Armstrong's temporary pacemaker, he began to bleed. Armstrong was brought into the catheterization lab for evaluation rather than straight to the operating room, a non-standard decision that cost him his life. Armstrong's case is a perfect example of the indiscriminate nature of lethal medical errors. 19% of elderly patients are injured by medical care in the U.S., and those injured have nearly double the death rate compared to those who receive proper treatment. July 20th in 2019, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing. In a riveting three-part documentary series, PBS explores the space race that led to American astronauts becoming the first men to set foot on the moon. Like many of you, I clearly remember watching the black and white images of Neil Armstrong first walking on the moon. At home with my family, it was very moving for me, and I was inspired, like many, to become an astronaut. Thankfully, I changed that course and redirected to medicine. July 20th, 2019, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing. Okay, I think they repeated that. The Apollo 11 crew consisted of Neil Armstrong, Edwin Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. After a 4-day journey through space, Armstrong and Aldrin landed the lunar module, Eagle, on the moon's surface, while Collins remained in orbit. Armstrong was the first to step onto lunar soil, uttering the now famous quote, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." The series includes long-forgotten archival footage from the 1960s, much of which the younger generation has never seen. I'm going to skip this part of the article, get to his medical error. Let's not talk about him going to the moon right now. In 2012, Armstrong, aged 82, underwent heart surgery at Mercy Health Hospital in Cincinnati. He died 2 weeks later. According to the New York Times, his two sons insisted his death was caused by incompetent post-surgical care. An investigator retained by the hospital reportedly agreed, finding serious problems with his treatment. Documents reveal Mercy Health paid the Armstrong family a $6 million malpractice settlement to avoid what the New York Times describes as devastating publicity. Indeed, as noted by attorney Bertha Helmick, who represented Armstrong's grandchildren in the proceedings against the hospital, no institution wants to be remotely associated with the death of one of America's greatest heroes. Actors. According to Helmick, the malpractice settlement could be subject to repayment should the details of the terms be revealed. The New York Times cites records from probate court showing $5.2 million of the settlement was split 50-50 by Armstrong's sons Mark and Rick. Armstrong's brother and sister each received $250,000, and each of his 6 grandchildren received $24,000. Armstrong's widow Carol did not participate in the settlement. Armstrong's fate revealed by anonymous source. Both the complaint and the settlement were in fact to remain secret, but the documents were leaked by an anonymous party to the New York Times in the days following the moon landing anniversary. The New York Times writes, Armstrong had undergone bypass surgery in early August 2012. And his wife told the Associated Press afterward that he was amazingly resilient and was walking in the corridor. But when nurses removed the wires for a temporary pacemaker, he began to bleed into the membrane surrounding the heart, his pericardial sac, leading to a cascade of problems that resulted in his death on August 25th. The medical dispute and secret settlement never before reported comes to light days after the 50th anniversary of Mr. Armstrong's moonwalk drew a flood of nostalgic coverage celebrating his feat. The New York Times received by mail from an unknown sender 93 pages of documents related to the astronaut's treatment and the legal case, including dueling reports by medical experts for the two sides. Some of the documents, though marked filed under seal, are publicly available at the probate court's website, confirming that the documents received by the Times are authentic. An unsigned note included in the envelope said the sender hoped the information would save other lives. What went wrong in Armstrong's care? According to the New York Times, the documents they received reveal that after the nurses removed the wires for Armstrong's temporary pacemaker, which resulted in bleeding and a rapid drop in blood pressure, he was brought to the hospital's catheterization laboratory. An echocardiogram was performed, showing significant and rapid bleeding. Blood was drained from his heart at this point, after which he was finally brought into an operating room. At that point, it was too late. According to one of the expert reviews, the failure to bring Armstrong directly to the operating room, diverting him instead to the catheterization lab, was a crucial mistake by doctors. The New York Times writes, the decision to go to the cath lab was the major error. Dr. Joseph Bavaria, vice chair of cardiothoracic surgery at the University of Pennsylvania, wrote in a review conducted at the request of the Armstrong family. Dr. Richard Salzano, a cardiothoracic surgeon at Yale Medical Center, who reviewed the case for the hospital, saw the decision to bring Mr. Armstrong to the catheterization lab as defensible, but certainly riskier than taking the patient to the OR. Dr. Ashish Jha, a professor of medicine at Harvard University and a hospitalist who regularly cares for patients post-cardiac surgery, reviewed the experts' reports for the Times. If someone has dropped their blood pressure substantially, and this is a code blue, that means they are having life-threatening bleeding. I don't totally understand why they went to the cath lab, he said. Dr. Jha also questioned the hospital's original decision to perform the bypass surgery on Mr. Armstrong on an emergency basis. It feels to me like his death was wholly preventable, he said. According to Richard Salzano, Armstrong would likely have had a 50-50 chance of survival had he undergone surgery without delay. As it happened, Armstrong became unsalvageable on the way to the OR. Or in other words, precious time was lost and a crucial window for life-saving treatment missed. The New York Times also asked Dr. Craig Smith, a cardiac surgeon at Columbia University Medical Center, for comment on the case. While Smith was unfamiliar with Armstrong's medical records, he said that patients with Armstrong's complications normally would not be brought to the cath lab for treatment. Generally, if a patient develops signs of bleeding inside the chest after pacing wires are pulled under observation, they would usually go straight to the operating room and usually survive, Smith told the New York Times. Let's see, guys. Now this article goes on to explain medical errors. Nearly 1 in 5 of elderly patients, 19%, are injured by medical care in the U.S. They're either given the wrong medication, they have allergic reaction, or are receiving a treatment that led to more complications of an existing medical problem. Adverse medical event rose 27% for each chronic medical condition a person had, also. Lead researcher Mary Carter, director of the Towson University Gerontology Program, told MedicineNet.com these injuries are caused by the medical care or management rather than any underlying disease. The rate of these injuries is probably higher than has been estimated. Medical error is the third leading cause of death in the U.S. Okay, I'm going to shorten this up. Estimated 440,000 Americans die from medical errors each year. All right. Right after heart disease and cancer. All right. What do you think, folks? Did you know that the astronaut Neil Armstrong died of a medical error, and that his family was paid malpractice money to hush it, to not have the publicity? What other types of stories do you think could be inside of this story that we don't know about? Do you think it's legit? He was taken to the cath lab? This kind of reminds me of a certain princess who died in a tunnel and took an hour and a half in an ambulance to get to a hospital, and was kind of left without much hope once she reached the operating room. This person also, they were in the cath lab, and it says at one point they drained the blood out of his heart. What's the point in doing that? I don't get it. There's a beautiful postage stamp, 10 cents airmail of the first man on the moon. Look, and there's Earth off in the distance. You can see Earth rising up on the moon's surface. All right. You know, if you were on the moon's surface, if every time we look up from Earth, we see the same face of the moon, the man in the moon, right? So if you were standing on the moon, on the lit side of the moon, if you looked up, you would see Earth. So why is it over there behind his butt, horizontal to the surface of the moon? That's for another video. I want to show you also something else, guys. Let's watch Neil Armstrong's last speech at the White House, where he said that these new graduates and students that were going into the space program needed to unfold one of truth's great layers. To me, a truth's great layers would be a lie, right? Here's what he said.
Today we have with us a group of students among America's best. To you, we say, we have only completed a beginning. We leave you much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
Are you going to remove one of truth's protective layers? What is removing one of truth's protective layers mean? What is a protective layer around the truth? That means either hiding the truth or lying, I think. So right there he's saying that you're going to make a lot of advances in things that have never been done if you just remove a lie or unhide something that was hidden. What could it be that's hidden? What could they be hiding? You know, think about it. Anyway, thank you for coming to Plain Mundane Show. Please hit like, subscribe, ring that bell, and just wait till I put up another video. Bye.